Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss. I'm coming from live from Los Angeles. I got my co-host Kasey, Vlad to the bone, Shinefold. Kasey, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. I'm coming to you from snowy Pennsylvania. It's actually snowing right now, Ross. It's miserable.
I do like the weather changes. We don't get snow where I live, but it does get around 45, 50 at night, which is, for me, it's cold.
That sounds warm to me right now. I think it's 36 degrees out. So
we're in week 11. I mean, this is week 11.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just talking in one of our leagues that we're together in. You're undefeated,
10-0, baby.
Unbelievable. And it's to be 10-0, you need a lot of luck. I don't think it's skill when it gets.
Oh, it's health. I mean, I've just been fortunate. Players have gotten healthy, and Justin Fields has carried me the last 2 or 3 weeks. Like, he's getting 40 to 50 points alone based on our scoring rules. So
Justin Fields, top 5 fantasy quarterback. No one knew it going into the season, but again, those are one of the diamond in the roughs, and that's the reason we play the game, is because we never know. And he's a great example. If you guys have questions, or if you guys have questions about anything, Dynasty, Kasey's a genius when it comes to this stuff, just so everybody knows. Dynasty, redraft, keeper leagues, you name it, we have answers. We even have Super Chat and Super Stickers. We have everything here, Kasey Shinefold. It's unbelievable.
It's exciting stuff, I'm telling you.
So you're in Pennsylvania. I know you're not an Eagle fan. Kasey's a Giant fan. Everybody knows Giants. He likes the Giants.
Hey, only one game back in the division, thanks to last night.
Your Eagles lost last night to the Commodores. They're not the Commodores. The
Commanders. Although the Commodores is more fun.
I always mix them up. I've been mixing them up since they started. Just to read house.
Isn't that like My Girl? Do we have to break into it or something? Was that?
I know
no, that was the Four Tops. Was it? I don't know.
But basically, they lost to Washington. Washington, they're in the playoff hunt. They're 500. They're not bad. Tyler Heinicke, I love that guy. What do you think about the Eagles losing their first game?
Well, look, did anybody think they were going to go undefeated? So I think now is a good time to lose. But look, if you turn the ball over 4 times, and now Eagles fans, trust me, I live in Eagle country. We're all complaining about the face mask fumble where they missed the face mask on Dallas Goedert. But there were some other turnovers that were just ridiculous. And if you turn the ball over 4 times, it doesn't matter who you're playing in this league. It's tough to win. They scored touchdowns on their first 2 drives, and then went like 6 straight series without a point. So that happens.
I don't blame Jalen Hurts either. There were fumbles. There were a horrible, their offense, except Hurts.
He threw for 2 touchdowns and ran 1 in. So he was great for my fantasy team.
No, I don't blame Hurts at all. He took his team to be undefeated until yesterday. He's definitely a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Talking about fantasy, I usually do this at the end, but I want to do it at the beginning this time. I want to talk waiver wire, who you should pick up this week. Who are the big pickups? Who should we kind of lay off? Let's start with quarterbacks, and we usually go like 60% and lower on Yahoo. That's our bar.
Yeah.
So this week, Mariota is playing at home against Chicago. I mean, I have him as a pickup because I feel the Chicago defense isn't that great. Mariota doesn't throw that much, but he likes to run, right, Kasey?
He does, and that's where his fantasy value is. And it's not that he doesn't like to throw; it's that the game script, for some reason, Arthur Smith just has him handing the ball off and only throwing it 18 to 20 times a game.
I agree with you, and again, the slim pickings when it comes to quarterback this week when you need a fantasy quarterback. Is there any other quarterbacks that you like this week that we should pick up?
I think the waiver wire is pretty thin, but if you're like, for me, I'm in a position where my one team is guaranteed to make the playoffs. The other ones, I'm in pretty good shape also, but like Deshaun Watson is going to start practicing this week. He's supposed to come back, maybe not this week, but the following week, I believe.
Week 13, Case. He's
week 13. So they have this week, then a bye, and then the week after.
There you go. So
right in time for the fantasy playoffs. But another thing you got to think about is blocking your opponents, right? So maybe I don't need Deshaun Watson, but if I can put him on my bench, guess what? Nobody else can get him. And week 14 is usually the fantasy playoffs. So if you can eliminate somebody's like lottery ticket for the playoffs, it's only better for you. The other person I would consider is Matt Ryan. I mean, he's got the job back now that Jeff Saturday has put him in there. He's a dink and dunk quarterback. He's not going to throw for a lot of yards. Like, he's not an air yards kind of guy, but he has good receivers. It gets Jonathan Taylor more involved. Paris Campbell is a run after the catch guy anyway, so he takes a big boost in his fantasy value. So that's another person I would consider.
Again, Matt Ryan, beginning of the year, I thought he was going to have a good year. Not a great year, a good year. Then he was benched. And the first thing Jeff Saturday did was he came to Indianapolis and he said, "You're starting."
Right.
I don't know why they benched you. You're not the reason why they're losing. Not at all. It's your
I think they benched him, and
Jonathan Taylor wasn't running what he's supposed to do. So at least Jeff Saturday had the sense, the common sense, to put him back in as quarterback, and they won. They beat, I know, the 2-7 Raiders. I get it, but again,
they beat him, but it's still a win.
Again, it didn't take a genius to figure out that Matt Ryan's your starting quarterback. Come on. So let's start running back now. I mean, the running backs are thin, like we said. Rachaad White for Tampa Bay. He has a bye week this week, but like you were saying, playoffs are coming up. Rachaad White, again, he was the main. He had over 80 yards last week.
I think he's the top running back pickup, because I think coming after the bye, he might be the lead back. Because let's be honest, Leonard Fournette was averaging less than 2.5 yards per carry on the season. Like, this isn't a guy who's getting the job done. If Tom Brady's going to stay upright, they need to have a running game. Rachaad White has shown a lot more punch than Leonard Fournette so far. And the number 2 guy, I think, is one of your favorites, who you've been talking about for weeks, is Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
They benched CEH for whatever reason. I'm not sure what it is. And they've kind of made him the lead back. And so he would be a priority add. And also McKinnon, who's also in that offense, because let's be honest, you want any piece of that passing offense you can have, and McKinnon is your passing downs back. So
it's funny. I tend not to pick up any running backs in Kansas City because Mahomes likes to run the ball and he likes to throw the ball. Kelsey's the big weapon. And when you have a running back in Kansas City, I just feel it's like, okay, you'll get maybe 70, 80 yards and maybe a touchdown, but not guaranteed like some other teams. So
right.
I stay away, but Pacheco, the rookie from Rutgers, good pickup. Another one I want to ask you about is Jaylen Warren for the Steelers. He's been getting the ball a lot more now.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Is it somebody that's a high in your waiver wire pickup? Or
yeah, he was my number 3, honestly. And, and it's interesting that we're talking about it when Najee Harris had his best game of the season, rushing for 99 yards on 20 carries. But Jaylen Warren was in for 43% of the plays, got 9 carries of his own, and was the third down back for all the passes. He caught 40 yards. And now that Chase Claypool is gone, guess what? There's more stuff available for him. So I think he would be somebody I would put on my roster with the hopes that his value will actually increase over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Is there anybody in LA for the LA Rams that you would pick up to start as running back? I mean,
Kyron Williams looks good when he's running, but the Rams offensive line looks like a sieve in some ways. I don't know how effective you can be. But Akers or Henderson, neither have been very effective when they've been given the job. I heard Akers might be coming back and getting more carries, but let's be honest, he never recovered from his torn Achilles of 1.5 or 2 years ago, it looks like. So, Kyron Williams is a maybe, but not a strong one, that's for sure.
Then you got the big problem in Denver. You got Gordon, you got Murray, you also got Edmonds now, correct? And it's like I have Murray in some leagues, but I'm not starting him. But what's your take? Any ideas what you should do if you have any of those Denver running backs?
I would avoid them all.
Yeah,
I really don't feel comfortable with any one of them, because even if one gets a majority of the carries, they haven't done much with them, and so. I don't know. It's not one I'm terribly excited about. That's for sure.
And if you have any questions for us here on MFSN, I'm pretty good, and Vlad to the Bone is a genius. So ask us any fantasy questions about who you should start, who you should bench, who you should pick up. We're here for you. Trade ideas. If you have too many receivers that are really good, you want to trade. Let us know what your lineups are. We'll be happy to analyze it for you. We're here for you, man. We're here.
Anything, you let us know. And Elijah Mitchell, last I checked, he's only 60% owned, and everybody thought when CMC was traded to San Francisco, he was going to get everything, but Elijah Mitchell actually out-touched him, I think, on the day, or
I
it
think
was
he
about a
did
50%
handoff,
timeshare.
not receiving, but you're right.
Yeah, but in snaps. But and look, he's there between the tackles runner, and so you know how much Kyle Shanahan loves to run the ball. I think you can keep 2 fantasy relevant running backs in a Kyle Shanahan offense.
And with McCaffrey's history getting hurt, I think it's a good idea that Mitchell gets at least half the handoffs. You're 100% right. And Mitchell, you know, I had him in IR in all my leagues, so I was lucky enough to have him.
Yeah.
But some people dropped him, so check your rosters and to see if he's available. If he is, pick him up. Another guy that I think you should handcuff and pick him up if you have room is Alexander Madison. He's the handcuff in
Dalvin
Minnesota.
Cook.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on him?
I mean, Dalvin Cook is awesome. So, but Alexander Madison, when Dalvin Cook gets hurt, and he's been hurt regularly throughout his career, has looked like a 1,000-yard back when he was the primary running back. He's never been able to play enough games in a season to get there because of Dalvin Cook. But if I had Dalvin Cook, I would be adding him and keeping him on my bench for the rest of his life. And then when Dalvin Cook gets hurt, which usually happens, I would gladly stick Madison in and feel really comfortable with my lineup.
Let's talk wide receiver. My number one pickup for a wide receiver this week.
You're going to say it. I know. Go ahead.
It's not going to be Christian Watson.
I'm that's not what I'm talking
Watson. And everybody loves Christian Watson because he had 100 yards and a touchdown last week. But
I didn't think you were going to say Christian Watson. I know who your number one. It's going to break my heart. Go ahead.
It is. I got to say it, and not because you're a Giants fan, but
here we go.
Katavius Toney. Did I say his name right, Case?
You're talking about Kadarius Toney? Yeah.
Yeah. He's the guy that was traded from the Giants. Now he's on Kansas City. He had that great one-legged touchdown for Kansas City.
Hopping down the sideline. Yeah.
Hopping down the sidelines with 1 foot. He had 50-something yards and a TD.
He had 8 targets. Like, that's a good amount of targets in that offense.
And remember, this is a second week on the team.
I know. And you got to factor in that Schuster is in the concussion protocol because he took a shot. Mecole Hardman's been missing time. Valdez-Scantling was on the field more, but only got 1 target. So, I mean, Toney has already gained the trust, it looks like, of Patrick Mahomes. And ask Tyreek Hill how good you can be when Patrick Mahomes trusts throwing you the ball. Like, it breaks my heart to see it, but I agree with you. He's the top pickup. Christian Watson,
your top receiver.
Christian Watson had an awesome game, 3 touchdowns.
You're right, should pick up.
But ironically, the other guy I would pick up is a New York Giant, and that's Darius Slayton, because quietly over the last 4 weeks, he's averaging almost 11 fantasy points per game, which puts him in the top 20 fantasy wide receivers, which is pretty impressive. Daniel Jones doesn't have a lot of weapons. And if you remember his rookie season, Darius Slayton kind of burst onto the scene and did some stuff. And hopefully he's healthy, because the last few weeks he's looked pretty good. And that 59-yard touchdown he had on Sunday was really impressive.
So Johan Dotson, he's the rookie from Penn State, Casey Scheinfeld, plays for Washington Commanders.
I like him.
He just got off the IR on Monday, actually, for the game. What's your thoughts on him? I mean, he was like a touchdown every game before he got hurt. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Penn State fan too. So I've watched his catch radius. For his size, his catch radius is amazing. But I like him a lot. I don't think he gets a lot of targets. Like, if you look at his first 3 or 4 weeks where he caught all those touchdowns, he only had 3 or 4 targets a game. He just always caught them, and they happened to be in the red zone. And so if he can that was with Carson Wentz. I'm not sure what his chemistry is going to be like coming back to Taylor Heineke. But I certainly want him on my team if he's available. Like, if the end of your bench is these wide receivers that aren't producing, or if, let's say, you're looking to replace a Schuster or a Cooper Kupp or something like that, Dotson is somebody I would target. Absolutely.
So there's been talk. Oh, we have a question from. Can you say that Nigel
from Fook Win?
Fook Win.
Yeah,
it's Vietnamese. Do I trade Sutton, who has been not good this year, and Swift for Cook?
For Dalvin Cook? Yes.
It's probably Dalvin Cook.
I would absolutely trade him for Dalvin Cook. And then if you were listening a few minutes earlier, I would pick up Alexander Madison and feel much happier with those two on my roster than DeAndre Swift and Cortland Sutton.
I mean, unfortunately for Jandre Swift, who we don't have rostered on our team, the other guy that comes on once in a while, Dr. Dan Ratner, had him and he traded him. But Swift has not been getting a lot of playing time. It's been Jamal Williams in Detroit, unfortunately for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you press accept and immediately on that. That's an easy one.
Look, if you can't get Kadarius, I mean, if you could get Dalvin Cook in a trade and pick up Kadarius Toney and pick up Paris Campbell, because Paris Campbell's value goes through the roof with Matt Ryan, because Matt Ryan throws the short, quick routes and relies on.
Oh, he loved him before he was benched. Yeah.
Right. And so, this past week he saw 9 targets, 7 receptions, because they're short throws. So, when he targets him, he's usually open, and got 76 yards. So, I would do that trade in a heartbeat and pick up somebody like Paris Campbell, Kadarius Toney, Christian Watson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, any of these guys.
Peoples-Jones is on our list. He's somebody we mentioned last week. You should definitely pick him up. He's been getting a lot of targets, a lot of yards, and that Cleveland offense isn't as bad as you think it is.
And it could get better, because in 2 weeks you could have Deshaun Watson running it. So
we'll see what happens with him. So what's your story? Somebody's getting a lot of press. Like every time he opens his mouth, there's like a huge on-stream of like press. Odell Beckham Jr., who's like, I think it's 40%. I know, I get
it. He's a former Giant too, and trust me,
I get what you're saying about him.
Some of the catches he made were some of the greatest things I've ever seen. But
the greatest catch I've seen in a long time is Justin Jefferson from Minnesota. That one-handed catch he did.
Did you see the one Stephon Diggs did just this weekend?
No, it was Justin Jefferson who made that catch.
No, Diggs did one too, where he jumped. It looked like
I didn't see that. I saw Jefferson
in the air.
I was blown away by that catch.
And George Pickens had a great catch. But
so Odell Beckham, would you pick him up and stash him if you had room on your roster?
It depends where he signs.
The rumor is that, let's say he signs with the Cowboys. That's
then yes, I would.
Jerry Jones was interviewed today on the radio, and they asked him about it, and he praised him for like 10 minutes. I mean, he loves this.
Yeah, guy. I would certainly, because I like Michael Gallup, but they can line. I mean, could you imagine if Odell has regained his speed? That's the question.
Here's a quick question for you, and I think you know the answer, because you've said some things about this receiver in the past. Who's the second leading receiver in Dallas this year?
Is it still Noah? What's his face? Brown or
Noah Brown?
Noah Brown. Nice.
Noah Brown's the second leading receiver in Dallas.
But you put Odell Beckham Jr. in the slot, and a bunch of quick slants from Dak Prescott, and he's going to produce, especially in a PPR. He might not be a touchdown producer right away, but he'll produce. I would pick him up. I'd rather have him than Michael Gallup at this point.
There you go. Okay, good. So, those any other receivers that I'm missing or we didn't talk about that you want to pick up?
Let me see who I have on my list. I like DeAndre Carter because Keenan Allen.
Hold on. Let me just give you some information what's going on with the Chargers. So Mike Williams and Keenan Allen supposed to be in full practice this week. Then
I don't like DeAndre Carter. Okay, so well done.
Yeah, that's the rumor, but they said that last week about Allen, and he never, he didn't play.
I mentioned earlier Donovan Peoples-Jones quickly when I was responding.
Yep.
Like, he's been quietly really good this year. I mean,
I talked about him last week, Casey. I mean,
Amari Cooper came out of the gates really hot, and everybody wanted to talk about Cooper, but Donovan Peoples-Jones has been the best wide receiver for fantasy purposes on the Cleveland Browns for at least the last 4 or 5 weeks.
So my number one tight end pickup this week is Cole Kmet of the Bears.
Yeah,
he's been getting targets. He's been scoring touchdowns. He's been doing great, and the Bears offense is really rolling with Fields, as we know. So he's my number one. My number two is probably Evan Ingram. But again, if you don't have either Andrews, who's actually hurt, I also like Likely. I don't know if he's under 60%, but like we talked about.
But if you're an Andrews owner and you don't have Likely, you've already missed the boat.
You messed up. You screwed up. You didn't listen to me. But Evan Ingram and Andrews is 50-50 to play this week. The last time I checked, I don't know if he's playing, but hopefully you picked up Likely last week, because I'm guarantee he's not available this week. But again, you never know. But Cole Kmet is my number one pickup at tight end. Is anybody a tight end that you're itching to pick up?
Well, there's two guys who I would consider. One is Foster Moreau in Las Vegas. I mean, I know it's not a name where he's going to wow you. But with Waller being on the IR, right? He went IR last week. So he's at least out for the next 4 weeks. He's going to command a strong snap share and get his share of targets. So he's going to have a safe floor. He might not have the ceiling of some of these more athletic guys, but if you're looking for a bye week option for Gerald Everett or is Disley the one in Seattle?
Seattle has a bye week,
or Cade Otton in Tampa Bay, or Evan Ingram in Jacksonville. Like, that's a good guy. The other one who I think is going to be sneaky is Trey McBride. This guy was the Arizona Cardinals used a 2nd-round pick on this guy. To use a 2nd-round pick on a tight end, he won the, what is it, the Mackey? Is that the best tight end in college? At Colorado State last year, he was a 2nd-round pick, and now with Zach Ertz possibly being lost for the season, and that guy was a PPR monster. Trey McBride could walk into a really good situation where he's getting 8, 9, 10 targets a game if he's learned the offense by now. So that's somebody else who probably is less than 10% owned that people aren't thinking about, that you might be able to sneak in and have a viable fantasy tight end.
And then, let's talk about defenses streaming. The 2 defenses I think you should pick up this week that you can stream that are under 60% are the Bengals are playing Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. I know you're saying Ross, they're in Pittsburgh. Doesn't matter. The Bengals play well either way. And Pittsburgh's team, again, they're not that great with the rookie quarterback. They don't put up huge numbers. And I also like the Jets defense this week too. I think they'll do pretty well also. If you're a guy that streams defense like me. Is there any other defenses that you like?
Well, I think Denver's defense could do pretty good against Las Vegas. I mean, let's be honest, they're not striking fear in anyone right now. And I mean, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. The Giants and Lions, neither of them are playing great. So if you're desperate,
really, I just think the Lions' defense is bad. I think I just see the script of that game being a little high-scoring because the Lions can score points. No one. They won 2 in a row, Casey Scheinfeld, the Lions.
No, I know.
They're no joke. Like you're not laughing when they come to your stadium. You're biting your nails.
Hey, I hear you. I mean, I like Cincinnati's defense. I don't mind the Washington Commanders defense.
I don't either.
Houston, look what they just did to the Eagles.
I like the Commanders. I've always been a Redskin fan when we were called the Redskins back in the day. But back in the day, it was like 2 years ago.
It was a lot.
But I like the Commanders defense. I respect them, and if with a bad team like Houston, I'm trying to pick them up in a few leagues actually.
Well, how do you feel about New Orleans going against the Rams? I think last year it was funny. You called them the Lambs all year long, and then they won the Super Bowl. So you're kind of like, all right, I got to give them the respect. They're the Rams. This year is when they're actually playing like.
I call them Lambs this year, and I think New Orleans Kamara is going to have a great game. And
but I mean, what do you think? Do you think New Orleans defense is going to be successful?
Oh, they'll have some picks, and they'll stop the run.
So that would be another one I would.
And there's no Coop. I mean, I think Dr. Dan Ratner is starting at receiver this week, so I mean, I don't see them scoring many points with that offense at all. With Stafford,
no offensive line, a statue of a quarterback with a bad elbow.
No running game. There's I mean, Allen Robinson now is going to be his number one target.
Of course, supposedly. You realize that since we just described it this way, they're going to put up like 47 points on Sunday.
If you have any questions about who you should pick up this week or your team, please, ask us right now. We'll be happy to answer it. Let's talk what's going on in the NFL and injuries and stuff. The number one story right now is Cooper Kupp.
It's got to be. Yeah.
He's having surgery tomorrow here in Los Angeles on his ankle. He'll be out. He's out at least 4 weeks, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, how's that going to affect the really poor offense of the Rams? I mean, how much are they going to go get worse?
Yeah, I don't think Allen Robinson is ready to be a number one receiver anymore, but we'll see what happens. Cajunomics, I could tell it's a Saints fan. Did you see that? Saints are everybody's get right game. So he agrees with us that the Rams are finally going to have a get right game, and it's against the Saints. Well, Cajunomics, thanks for watching the show. I hope you're wrong, because I'm tempted to start New Orleans defense in a couple games, and I'm certainly hoping that that Olave can have a pretty big game for me there too. So
I think Kamari Olave is going to both have good games. Even with the Red Rifle starting, it's not a primetime game. It's just a regular 10 o'clock Sunday game. He'll do great. Anytime that happens, Dalton's unbelievable.
I keep thinking like the Christmas story. You'll shoot your eye out.
So Dallas Goedert, big news out of Philadelphia. He's hurt. He hurt his shoulder. He's out for a while. I'm not quite sure who the backup tight end is. Case maybe look that up.
But in Philly, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. But I mean, just happened like very recently. So Dallas Goedert's out. We'll let you know who the backup tight end is. I mean, again, Hurts loves throwing to the tight end, so it could be worthy of a pickup this week. If any of you people out there know
you mean Hurts? Yeah.
Yeah, knows who Dallas Goedert's backup is, let us know. So we have a question from Chaka Khan. Let me rock you, Chaka. Should I trade away Gabe Davis, who's the receiver in Buffalo, the second receiver for Foreman, PPR? Full. I assume it's full PPR. I would, yes, just because Foreman is the main guy in Carolina. Gabe Davis, Allen leads the league in interceptions.
And Gabe Davis is kind of one of those,
and it's kind of like fly by
receivers.
Night.
Yeah, he's a boomer bust receiver. He either has like over 21 fantasy points or less than 6, and there's really nothing in between. Whereas Deontay Foreman is the number one running back. So you're guaranteed to get between 12 and 15 or 16 runs, 60 plus yards and hopefully a score. I would probably go for the predictability. Jack Stoll is your Philadelphia Eagles backup tight end. He has a total of 7 targets all season.
Okay, so if you want to take a chance this week and start Jack Stoll as your tight end, and again, if you don't have the top tier guys and you're just throwing darts, Jack Stoll is not a bad start. I mean, it really isn't.
If you're desperate, I mean, I would still prefer McBride,
it's not a bad start.
Or...
So Jack Stoll, that's a great quick quiz question. I would never know the answer to that until now. Thanks for looking at it.
I'll ask you where he went to college.
No idea. So we have a question. Casionomics. I would probably take Foreman right now. Obviously, yes. Running back is harder to find on waivers right now. Most impossible in my. Yes, I agree. I mean, right now, running backs are very scarce. We're
Jack
really
Stoll went to Nebraska.
So, Casey, you agree getting Foreman? We just talked about it. So yes,
yeah, I do. Accept. I mean, even though Hubbard is quote unquote the receiving back in Carolina, and it's a PPR league, like I said, Gabe Davis will either have 5 receptions for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns, or 3 receptions for 32 yards.
So, big news I mentioned before: Keenan Allen and Williams are both coming back this week for the Chargers. What's that mean for Herbert?
Well, I mean, obviously he'll be excited to get Keenan Allen back in that slot for him, and Mike Williams as an outside threat. I think it hurts DeAndre Carter, but I mean, he's got to be excited to have some targets to throw to. I was watching some of the last game, and like his accuracy on his deeper throws and his touch throws is amazing. And so to have receivers who can catch it is just obviously.
I think they'll be the Chargers everybody thought they would be earlier. So we have a question, Case. Why don't you read this one?
All right. Gob MX, 7-3 full point PPR, waiting for Deshaun Watson off suspension. I've been starting Carr, Wilson. I had Jones the 1 week. He did great. Who should I play? Or should I get Daniel Jones off waivers? So, yeesh. Are you talking about Wade Wilson or Russell Wilson? I guess is a good question there.
Let us know. Is it the Jets quarterback or the Denver quarterback? But Carr is playing New Orleans. I don't like that game at all for Carr.
But if regardless of what Wilson it is, I would probably take Daniel Jones. And the reason I say that is because he's willing to run, and what's proven this year more than anything is the mobile quarterback is climbing up the ranks of fantasy sports, because you have Justin Fields, not because he's a great
Russell
thrower.
Wilson.
Oh, it's Russell. Okay. But
which makes it more an obvious answer. And yes, you're right.
I think Daniel Jones gives you the chance of 30 to 40 yards rushing to go along with whatever his passing stats are, and maybe even run it into the end zone, because he's actually a pretty good athlete. You might not think about it looking at him, but the kid can move. and look what
No,
Justin Fields.
I've seen him move, Kasey Scheinfeld. I've seen him play. He's unbelievable. And Russell Wilson, I would waive Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I would drop him for Daniel Jones.
Just drop Russell Wilson. You don't need him on your team. He's bad luck.
I get why you're hanging on to him. I have him in a league that I've hung on to him all along because it's Russ Wilson. I get it. But at some point, you got to stop looking at the name on the jersey and start looking at the numbers that they're producing. And right now, he's just not a good quarterback this year right now.
So Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2 games in a row. I think they're back in first place in that horrible division, NFC East or whatever it is.
South. They're in the South.
Well, but do you think the Tampa Bay will make the playoffs? And if they do, will they go far inside the playoffs?
Tampa Bay will make the playoffs just because the NFC South is not that strong. As Cajunomics pointed out earlier, the Saints are everybody's get-right game. It seems like Atlanta was winning the division at like 1 game over 500 or 1 game under 500. I forget what it was.
Under.
And so, who's going to challenge them in the South? And so I think they're going to win the division, which means they'll get a home game the first game of the playoffs. They're probably not going to get a bye, nor should they. And look, he's 45. I think he's past his prime, but I'm never going to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. I'm just not going to do it.
Neither.
Especially if Mike Evans and Godwin are getting healthier each week. If they can figure out their offensive line problems and if Rachaad White establishes himself as a decent running back, yeah, I'm not going to pick against him.
Now, the game of the year, I don't know if game of the year, but it was a great game to watch, was the Vikings and Bills game. Went to overtime, Kasey. Allen had some picks during that game. He didn't look that great. I know he's hurt. They had chances to win that game. They lost. The Vikings, they have 1 loss this year. I mean, no one talks about the Vikings. There's no press. Whoever is their press person in Minnesota should be fired. No one knows. No one knows how good they are.
I'm complaining about the weather in Pennsylvania. I can't imagine what it's like in Minnesota.
No, but so what's your thoughts on the Bills? Do you think you still think they're like an elite team in the AFC? Do you think you see them going to the Super Bowl this year or beating Kansas City to get there? Or what's your thoughts on Buffalo?
I still see them as one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the AFC with Kansas City and with, you got Miami is playing really good football right now. You got, the Ravens are always scary, although they're not producing right now. There's some good teams. Cincinnati, if they're going to get Jamar Chase back and healthy around the end of the season, they're a scary team. So the AFC to me is the deeper league of the 2 leagues, but I still wouldn't bet again. I think it's going to come down to the Chiefs and the Bills like it did last year in the playoffs, which I know they called the Bills and the Vikings game this week the best game in a very long time, but that Kansas City Buffalo playoff game was still the best football game I may have ever watched. It was awesome. And so
better than the Giants Super Bowl when David Tyree caught the football with his helmet
on his, or when Mario Manningham caught the one down the sideline. Yeah, I remember them both. But yes, it was still a better football game. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was happier at the end of the Giants one.
Okay, just making sure.
But full football game, the Kansas City Buffalo game was the most amazing display of talent I've watched in a football game.
Another game that I'm still in shock of is Green Bay down 14 points in the fourth quarter.
Oh, I know, to Dallas.
To Dallas Cowboys, who are a pretty good team, Kasey Scheinfeld.
Yeah, and a good defense. That's what's even scarier. It's not that they did it, that Dallas was just a good offense but didn't put up points in the fourth quarter. Dallas is supposed to have this stifling defense.
And I don't know. I don't understand, but they threw the ball in the fourth quarter 14 times and ran 6 times, up by 14. Pollard was averaging 5 yards a carry, and Zeke was averaging 7 yards a carry. Why do you disband the run game when you're up by 14 points?
I was thinking the same thing. And why, if you know that their only receiver who can run past you is Christian Watson, you don't really cover him in the fourth quarter?
No, I mean, it was – whoever is the offense coordinator, I would fire them immediately. The stupid football, and that's a loss. That's because of the coach, not because of the players. But again, I don't know. I don't know what the theory was of going out there and having Dak throw the ball up 14 points. I don't understand what they were doing.
Yeah, there's been some bad coaching decisions all over the place, But hey, That's for them to have to deal with, right? Not
Yep.
us.
That's exactly. So we got some big games coming up this weekend, Case. Let's mention some of the big ones that you're excited about. Do you have the schedule in front of you real quick?
I do. My favorite games this week. Let's see, week 11. For fantasy purposes or just for football purposes?
Just football and little both. Just tell us the matchups, and I'll give you some opinions on each one. Go.
Okay. Well, let's see. The Thursday night game is going to be the Titans and Derrick Henry against Brett Favre, against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. How's that for a slip up? I don't know. The Thursday night games have been awful. At least there's some big names in this one.
Bad. I see Derrick Henry having a big game, and I see the Aaron Rodgers having 3 touchdowns, throwing, obviously not running. I see that a high scoring game. Both defenses aren't that great, and I think it'll be the best Thursday night game of the year.
I think it might be too. I'm looking at these games, and there's not many very good ones.
There's not. That's why I wanted you to tell me what they are, because I looked at them.
Actually, the Cowboys-Vikings could be a pretty good game.
It's in Dallas, correct?
It looks like it's actually in Minnesota.
It's in Minnesota. So Dallas is traveling up north for this game against Minnesota, who only has 1 loss this year. I see Dallas coming back and winning this week. I don't think they'll lose 2 games in a row. I'm going to take the Cowboys on a high scoring game, another high scoring game. I feel this will be a close game, but I think the Cowboys will win by a field goal.
Yeah, I think part of the reason the Vikings were able to stay with Buffalo is because Buffalo was so reliant on the pass. They don't have a run game at all. If Dallas learned anything from last week, hopefully it's that they should lean on Pollard and Zeke. And if they can do that, I think they can control that game. What do you think about your Bengals going to Pittsburgh?
We swept Pittsburgh last year. We won in Pittsburgh. We won at home. Our first game of the year was against Pittsburgh in the jungle, and we lost. So
yeah.
My confidence level is not that high, but Joe Burrow, I feel, is very confident right now in that Pittsburgh defense. They have a lot. Well, Watt did come back. Probably the best defensive player in the league. I mean,
he was at the time he was hurt. Yeah.
TJ Watt's unbelievable. So I think the Bengals will throw the ball a lot. I don't think they'll run Mixon like they did the last game when he had 5 touchdowns. I think it's going to be a big scoring game for the Bengals with Higgins and with Boyd. Even with Hurst as their tight end, I feel they had 2 weeks to prepare for this. They had a bye week last week, and I see the Bengals scoring over 30 points.
Is it sad that I'm looking at the Bears-Falcons game as something that could have a lot of fantasy juice to it?
Justin, again,
he's the most fascinating quarterback to watch right now.
I mean, he's going to have the biggest game against Atlanta of any quarterback playing this weekend. So if you play daily fantasy, make sure you pick up Justin Fields. Trust me.
All right, we have a question.
We have a question, Case. I'll read this one. It's
go for it.
It's from Burpee, right?
Blurpee.
Thanks. Current team: Hurts, unbelievable quarterback, top 5. Kamara, who I think the Raiders.
Holy cow! Those are some running backs.
Derrick Henry, ETN, who's off this week. Is this a 2-man league you're in?
It's like a 6-team league.
Is it? Well, you put Pacheco, who we like. I don't like that much of running backs in Kansas City. Madison's is a great guy to have
Hubbard's
on your
decent
bench because you have Cook. He took your advice, Casey Scheinfeld. Got Hubbard, who I like. I think that's a good start. In your receivers, Amon, go back, Greg.
10-man league.
10-man league. That's funny.
Sorry, Blurpee. We didn't mean to insult you. You just did
we're not.
You did a great job drafting running backs.
I'm not insulting him. I said he did really well drafting. I mean, the 10-man league is a great team. Got Amon, who I love. That's a must start. D-Hop's a must start. Olave is probably a must start. London, I would not start right now because Mario doesn't pass that much. Tight ends, Andrews and Kmet, great there. It's a 2-flex league. Was offered Olivier and Kmet for Debo. So Debo did not have a great game last week.
So he said, I traded for ETN and Henry, and ETN before he was good. Well done. And Henry for Foreman, Terry, and Lockett 2 weeks ago. So you gave up some pretty good wide receivers. Scary Terry and Tyler Lockett have been awesome. Would I do this trade? I would not. And I have 2 reasons for it. One, we don't know what Mark Andrews' health is going to be. He's 50-50 for this week. And you have arguably the hottest tight end in the league, catching passes from the hottest quarterback in the league who loves throwing to his tight end. I think Kmet's value, you're selling him high. I'll give you that. You're selling his value at the peak, and there is only room for regression. So in that respect, you're right. But without Mark Andrews healthy or 100% healthy, I don't see how you can make that trade. Also, Debo's usage, I worry about it now that Christian McCaffrey is in San Francisco, because Debo was getting 6 to 8 carries a game. Now he's not getting the carries. Ayuk has been playing out of his mind. Where did he go to college, Ross?
Arizona State.
Thank you. And Garoppolo has good chemistry with him. So I worry about if Debo is going to be exponentially better than Chris Olave, to be quite honest, for the remainder of the season. And so if you're throwing Kmet in there, I worry that you're giving up too much. I think you need a better wide receiver than Debo if you're giving up those two players.
Yeah, I'm worried about Debo just because he was hurt when McCaffrey came to the 49ers. And the 49ers look good. They're like,
yeah, they're Super Bowl.
Everybody was talking how great they were beginning of the season, and they lost a few, and everybody's like, oh, they're not that good. They're a really good team right now, especially with McCaffrey. So having McCaffrey in the team and Debo, I mean, I don't know if there's enough ball to go around for both of them right now.
Well, yeah, and plus you're talking about, as we said earlier, Elijah Mitchell's getting 15 carries too. So,
and you got Ayuk, and you got this guy named George Kittle, and you also got Jennings. I mean, they do their offense looks good. I like this right now.
He said I would really only start Debo this week and on D-Hop's bye week. So you're saying that, well, Amon-Ra's playing this week, Olave's playing this week. So you'd be willing to trade Kmet and Olave for 1 or 2 weeks of Debo, is what you're saying. And that's, look, you have a really strong team, so you might be in the playoffs already and feel like I'm not going to need Kmet come the playoffs. And so if I can get max value for him now, because Debo is an upgrade over Olave, I'm not going to deny that. And Debo has the potential, like he showed last year, to be a top 3, 4, or 5 wide receiver in the league. If you're secured your spot in the playoff and you are confident that Mark Andrews is going to be healthy when you need him the most, then make the trade. I think if that's your logic, it makes a lot of sense.
But if you're struggling to get in the playoffs,
if you need wins these next 2 or 3 weeks to get in the playoffs, then it becomes a much more riskier trade. And I need a player for week 14. Kmet and Olave have a bye.
Well, we had some great waiver wire pickups for you earlier in the show. There's people like
Kadarius Toney,
Darius Slayton, and we also mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones.
I think Paris Campbell can do it.
So if you want to watch, if you can go back and watch the waiver wire pickups, there's just for 1 week. You don't want to trade the house for just 1 week of to start. I mean, it's not worth it. So you want to play smart. And I'm worried about Debo. I know people were thinking like last year he was like 20 fantasy points every week. He's not the same guy. It's not the same.
Well, he might be the same guy, but he's not given the same.
It's not the same offense,
or they're prepared for him now. So, okay, Gob MX.
I'm worried about Debo this year. If it was last year, if you're chasing last year's stats, great. But you don't want to be one of these guys that chase people what they did last year. You don't want to be a chaser. You want to be a front runner like Casey Scheinfeld is. That's why he wins. So yes.
I'm hearing it's going to snow at Buffalo game. Should I bench Bass and get a different kicker, or just wait till game time? I am a kicking streamer. So I don't ever have, when you say bench Bass means you're going to carry 2 kickers. I don't believe in carrying 2 kickers. So I would probably either just get rid of him now if you're worried about it, or game time in Buffalo is, let me see.
If snow, rain, or sleet, I would start Bass. I feel with that offense, if it's snowing, it means in the red zone, they may not get in there.
He's the 1 o'clock game. If for some reason it comes down to like a blizzard and with high winds and you need to pick somebody up, like,
okay, if it's a blizzard with big winds, yes, you should not start him.
But you got the Chiefs are at the Chargers. That's going to be good weather. You got the 49ers and the Cardinals. You got the Cowboys. Are the Vikings still in the dome? They haven't
played in the dome in years. They destroyed that place. They have a new.
That shows you what I don't pay attention to where they play.
So it's an outdoor stadium, and they played the Super Bowl there, like Casey a few years ago.
I paid attention.
It was a horrible decision because everybody froze their ass off during the game. And there you go.
But to answer your question, Gob, I would either just ride with your kicker because you're talking about a kicker, or look at who's projected to score the most this weekend on your waiver wire and go with that person. I feel bad about the kickers because they're people too, but I don't really, I don't ever carry an extra one.
I'm a streamer with kickers. Miami's on bye weeks this week, so I'm waiving Sanders, obviously, and
yep.
A lot of I'm picking up Marr, the kicker for Dallas in a lot of my leagues. He's available, so I'm picking him up. Just because Dallas scores points, and I hope they don't get I hope they kick field goals now. So yeah, with kickers, you stream it. The only one I wouldn't stream if I had him is Justin Tucker.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, he's the only one that I feel is like
he's
a real weapon.
That might be somebody I would throw on the bench. I
do have him in some leagues. So when he had his bye week last week, I actually have 2 kickers on my team.
And that I understand.
Yeah. Okay. But he's the only one. That's the only kicker I would have on my team on a regular. I even waived McPherson. I mean, I waived him.
Your Bengals kicker.
I waived him because I didn't want to carry two kickers. Too many things going on.
I get it.
Okay, Case. I think anybody else has any questions? If not, we're going to call this the show.
Thank you, everybody, for asking questions. It makes it a lot more enjoyable for us too.
Yeah, I love giving advice when it comes to fantasy, and Casey and I usually disagree, but I didn't really disagree with you this much. You kind of had the right side on everything.
Well, I think Dan pits us against each other. I think
so. Okay, so Cameron B, I'll answer this. Do you guys have any reason to hang on to Hines? I've got CMC, Shankwan. Geez, those two top 5 backs.
Yeah, there you go.
Kareem Hunt, who hasn't done anything really.
Thanks, Gob MX. Thanks for joining in.
Cameron B. So if you could pick up Rashard White, if you could pick up some of the guys that we mentioned during our waiver wire, Hines would be the first guy I would waive. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Hines is essentially Kareem Hunt. You have very, very similar playing times, very similar playing roles in the offense. They're both kind of the third down back who's going to catch some passes, might score you a touchdown and get 2 or 3 receptions once in a while, but more often than not, you're going to be disappointed. Whereas Saquon and CMC are bell cows, and Kareem Hunt has more upside than Nyheim Hines right now.
And then Alexander Madison, who's a great handcuff,
and Pacheco,
and Isaiah Pacheco of Rutgers.
16. This is a 16-team league, and you have CMC, Saquon, Kareem Hunt, Alexander Madison, and Isaiah Pacheco. Well done. That's all I can say. Like, I would definitely try to trade for wide receivers from that depth.
And I would. And now, if there's anybody on waiver wire that's available, the guy I would waive is Hines. Yes, your answer is I would waive Hines.
Yeah, I would.
He would be the guy. Because sometimes, Casey, sometimes it's tough to figure out who you're going to waive. I mean, I've been in situations where
look, when I don't know who to waive, that's when I look to trade.
Yeah, I do too. But sometimes people don't play nice in the sandbox.
They don't.
So,
but if you could package a couple of those guys for one of the guys we were talking, Kadarius Toney or somebody like that, an upside wide receiver, that just gives you depth. That gives you a lot more opportunities to play players. AJ Brown, Amari Cooper, Ayuk, and KJ Osborne. Yeah, I own AJ Brown too. Were you as sad last night as I was? That was really hard to watch.
I needed
one reception for like 11 yards or something.
I haven't been in a big league, a Sports Illustrated league, and I needed 7 points, and he didn't do it. Amari Cooper, Ayuk, KJ Osborne's another guy I would probably waive.
Honestly, I would try to package some of your running backs to somebody who's running back needy and get an upgrade at wide receiver. Like Amari Cooper, people might not realize that the last 5 or 6 weeks he's been pretty mediocre, and he's a big name, so you might still be able to package him to somebody. So I would look to put maybe Kareem Hunt and Pacheco, because he's getting all the love right now because Kansas City's naming him the starter, even though we're not in love with Kansas City running backs. If you could package those two with maybe Amari Cooper and get a CeeDee Lamb or somebody like that, I would try to do that. All right, one last question. We were saying goodbye, but now we're getting questions. With Khalil Herbert out, is it Monty? Yeah. Where would you rank him? Also, should I start Jamal Williams or Tyler Boyd in the flex?
Okay, so the Bears are playing Atlanta this week in Atlanta. Atlanta's defense, probably either Detroit or Atlanta, are the worst two defenses in the league. I would say Atlanta.
Yeah, I would run.
So Montgomery, his running back rating is top 10 for sure. I would have him.
Yeah,
in the
I
top
would think
10.
he's around the 10th best running back.
Top 10, Kasey Scheinfeld. You could be safe with that. I didn't say top 5. I said top 10. So top 10 for sure. And also, I start Jamal Williams or Tyler Boyd. Boyd plays Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh case, and then Jamal Williams is playing some horrible team in where are they playing? In New York? In
New York. Well, in New Jersey.
In New Jersey. They're playing the Giants. Who could you like to start there? And I'll give you my opinion after you say it.
Of those two, I would probably start. I would probably Tyler Boyd if it's a PPR. I think that
I think you're correct. I would start Tyler Boyd. I think Tyler
especially with Jamar Chase out.
I think Boyd's going to have a big week this week. He's in my top 10 as receivers this week. I go against the grain a lot because you're not going to win.
I like Jamal Williams, though. I'm not going to lie. As a Giants fan, I'm not going to enjoy watching him.
Jamal's good. The Giants are going to cut that run down and
see if the sun god can beat him.
Sorry, lame kicker question. If you're up for it, sure.
Would
you guys hang on Jason Myers during the bye week? No, I would not hang with Jason Myers. I would pick up another kicker, and Jason Myers.
Yeah,
I almost guarantee you can probably can get him back after the bye week. So yes, you're fine.
Yep. Cameron, I appreciate the questions and thank you for being here.
The only kicker Kasey and I would hold on to is Justin Tucker. Everybody else we would just stream it. There's no reason to hold on to kickers. Especially if you're in a 10 team league for sure. 12, yes.
If you're in a 14 or 16 team league where you're getting into like some really low end offenses that don't put up any points, then maybe, but
yeah.
And look, it depends what you have, how much space you have at the end of your bench. If you have Zach Ertz, who suddenly is out for the season and you just are going to drop him, you can pick up another kicker. That's fine. But if there's some of these better options who we talked about at the beginning of the show available, I would rather have them stashed on my bench than Jason Myers.
And you got to prepare yourself for the playoffs and also prepare yourself for injuries because, the next couple of weeks, there are going to be some injuries. It's not going to be, and there's going to be more players like Cooper Kupp that are going to go down the next couple of weeks. It's not going to be pretty. And you got to have your bench ready to roll. Right, Kasey Scheinfeld?
Rock and roll. Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, you spend the season trying to acquire depth so that when this happens, you're prepared for it. So, but yeah,
so we're going to blow the whistle. We're going to call it a show today. Thanks everyone for watching. It was great answering questions. I hope you take your advice on Waiver Wire. There's some stuff out there. And remember, playoffs start in a couple weeks. The trade deadline is probably for your team.
Most of them are this week.
On Sunday.
Yep.
So if you're making trades, make sure you're aware of the trade deadline. It could be Sunday. It could be the following week, but just be aware it's coming up.
And if you have any more questions, Thursday, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific, right, Ross?
That sounds good. We do a show with this guy named Dr. Jan Ratner. He doesn't really know much about football, but he pretends he does, right, Kasey? I'm kidding.
He's a bright guy.
He's a very bright guy. He's a doctor, and he knows fantasy like crazy. And he's one of our good friends. I'm Ross the Boss. That's Kasey Vlad to the Bone Scheinfeld. Thanks for watching.